It was wonderful spending time with all of you in DC at APAC's National Council. Now that I'm back, I wanted to return to you. And rather than writing a note, I just wanted to see you or not see you, be seen face to screen. There was a lot of feedback from the conversation that we had, and I'm grateful that it was positive feedback. One of the questions that arose that was relayed to me was, what happens when our values, which was the subject of our conversation that morning, smoked fish, flat fish, and values, but what happens when our values are in conflict with one another? I just want to point your attention to the idea that we're constantly operating on the basis of values, and so are other people, which means that whenever you experience a disagreement with somebody, it's a disagreement based on values. You see the matter one way based on your values. The other person sees it their way based on their values. It could be trivial, and it could be something extremely important to you. But all conflict in relationships is based on values. By the way, I just want to point out that values in itself is a word that has little moral value. It's just a word. All choices are based on values. Some are wise and some are noble, and others, as we know, are despicable. That, by the way, is what makes for one of today's greatest forms of evil, which is evil on the basis of values. People doing harm for the sake of improving the world or righting their people's wrong or even doing God's will. It's what's called altruistic evil. It's evil based on the notion of operating under principles of values. But let's look away from those places, and look back to us and the choices that we can make in our lives on the basis of values. If we think about our values, we think that they're always potentially in conflict, which means that I have two choices, A and B. A is good and B is good. If I choose A, I counter B. If I choose B, I counter A. So think about your own story. Put this on pause for a second if you need to think, what's a recent example of a conflict of values that you've had in which both were good? Perhaps not equally good, but both were good. Let's say something that many of us can relate to. A is an opportunity to go for a greater job, a promotion in career that will better my family's condition. B is remaining exactly where I am in my career and spending more time with my wife and kids, which will better my family's condition. It's a conflict of values. My point is to say that often in life we're faced with these kinds of conflicts. The advantage of adding Jewish values on top of our personal, even financial, and professional values is they help us to find clarity, not only because we have a rich library of values, but also because one of the things that Judaism builds into your life and mine is reflection. It's mandated time for reflection. I always think that the prayer book is less about a conversation I should be having with God and a conversation that God is attempting in the busyness and volume of my life to have with me. So I look at the prayer book and I say, what is mirrored on this page? What's reflective? What's telling me something or asking something of me? What might God's prayers to me be? After reading Proverbs 31, Eshet Chayil, on Monday, we had a great discussion about it as a value statement, not only a beautiful tribute to what clearly is an extraordinary human being, but a value statement, almost like a company's value statement. And then I asked you to do something else. I said, what if I were to give you a checkbox list of values, all of those words that we use, kindness and consistency and goodness and strength and generosity, a whole list of values. And I asked you, without writing your name at the top of the page, to check mark the ones that you stand for. Fine, that's the first part of the exercise. And then I threw a curve at you, which was to say, now what if I collected all of them? And I passed them out to people who know you well, your family members, your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers. And I asked them to look at this page with no name on it and to ask them, could you recognize who this is? And the question then is, are we recognizable by those portraits of our values? We're often recognizable by other things, but what about that? Our values will inevitably collide with one another. We'll be inconsistent with values at times. That's inevitable as well. But if we choose to stand for something, if we want to be recognizable by that portrait of our values in life and beyond our lives, if our legacy is one of values as well, if we want to be people of valor, and I say valor as in Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, not merely goodness or kindness, but true valor, the willingness to do difficult value-based things, make difficult value-based choices, then we need to think carefully and often about the choices that we make. Thank you. It was wonderful to spend time with you. Look forward to seeing you again.